chaos.
And I got bold just because, you know what, it's July. Let's just get a little bit crazy. But who do you have as the fourth team?
So I'm 100% with you. I could have gone 100 different directions with this next chunk of the list. For the record, this 4 spot, I have it marked in my notes. This is the spot that I think the team that gets LeBron rises to.
You might be right about that. Yeah.
Like if Miami gets LeBron, I'm putting them right up here, in that conversation. If Philly gets LeBron, if Cleveland gets LeBron, I don't even like Cleveland, and I think if they get LeBron, they become this spot. And then certainly if the Golden State, it just pens the other trades. Like they would have to make other trades, but they do have their picks. Which, by the way,
go ahead.
This is Denver too.
Denver and Minnesota to me are number one if they get him. It's not going to happen. So it's kind of silly.
We don't need to get into a whole tangent on this, but I continue to what I keep thinking about with LeBron with Denver is he has played with teams that can't space from the center position ever since he left Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like whether it was Anthony Davis or it was Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton or whatever was filling in for Anthony Davis when he was hurt. LeBron has been contending with rim protection nonstop, and yet he has still been one of the most efficient and high-volume rim finishers in the league. I just imagine with Jokic pulling centers away, LeBron just feasting at the rim. Imagine the dual power forward thing. I think it would be such a wonderful fit, and I can't believe it's not being considered more from him.
I know. It's just not going to happen. Same with Minnesota, by the way, which I have to give them credit. He would be phenomenal there, too. I think both of those teams I would have number one if they were to win the LeBron sweepstakes. It just feels like they were a token. Just nice to be mentioned.
Exactly. So the Golden State piece of it, meaning like if LeBron would go there, they have the pieces to make other moves.
Yeah.
Setting LeBron aside, since we don't know where he's going to go, this is why I ended up going with Boston at number 4. You
can make a case
because they have an extremely strong regular season foundation in the sense that Paul George, say what you want about him, he's actually going to be a wonderful fit in Boston's system.
I agree.
And do I think their playoff ceiling is as high as it would have been if they would have kept Jaylen Brown? No, because I think Jaylen Brown is an underrated playoff player. But they have a boatload of draft picks available. They have a couple of different ways that they could structure salary trades. Like they could target less expensive players with someone like a Sam Hauser's salary. They could target a max level player with someone like Paul George's salary. They can target a middle salary with someone like Derek White in attaching picks, and they can make a big move. So Boston has the combination of like regular season stability and the ability to make a big move that kind of vaults them into another conversation. And again, I'm not the biggest Mitchell Robinson fan, but I do think he's a massive upgrade over their current backup options behind Nimi Keita.
And he's just a big body, which in the playoffs you can sink because you just didn't have a big enough body, which is what happened to him this year. So he checks a box that was unchecked in the playoffs last year. But I'm with you. The regular season formula thing to me is huge, and they just know how to like get games. I think their analytics ball, they're spread out, dribble drive, lots of threes. It's a formula for regular season success, and if things hit right, playoff success. Contender, they're in the same tier of all these other teams, which is if you're asking me, do you think they're going to win it next year? I'd say no, I don't. But you have to have somebody penciled in there and somebody that can make this sort of leap. And I actually love that you went bold. I had them number 7. Okay. But I'll be honest, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to me are all like they're just tied. All right, go to your next one because I don't want to share mine until it gets there because it's a bit of a surprise.
Okay, all right. Well, now I'm excited. Number 5, I have Miami.
Wow,
not me. Even if they don't get LeBron, I just think they have such a strong defensive foundation, and then the combination of just dealing with Giannis and Bam in a playoff series. I think they are set up too for backup plans off of the LeBron thing. Like if they get LeBron, obviously that's a huge boost to them offensively, but they are going to have the line of all of these like inexpensive combo guards because of the ball handling responsibility that's available, because their best perimeter players right now are Davion Mitchell and Tim Hardaway Jr. So like there's a good chance that you could see a DeMar DeRozan going there. There's a good chance you could see, I know Russell Westbrook's name has been floated around.
He'd actually maybe be good there. The spacing is a concern, but just in terms of like physical pressure on the paint,
it'd be a double down on what they do. You know what I mean? Like their spacing is going to be crap anyway. So why not just have 7 people banging on the door, so to speak? But like I went with Miami here because I think that they just have a strong defensive foundation and a roster that's built for playoff success. But I want to be 100% clear. I agree with you. Like you could argue anybody in this 4 through 8 range could be listed in a variety of different ways.
Yeah. Miami I is a lower on. I had them, I think, what do I have them 9th here? And I do feel bad about having them this low. The problem is, to me, they do feel like an incomplete team. They feel like a team that I think next year is going to be the title favorites. It might take 2 years to build this. The one thing I'll say is the regular season could get tough on them because they're the opposite of Boston. I think it'll be hard to manufacture wins. But the playoffs, I do think there's something to the playoffs. You have to score on teams. Teams have to get stops. You have to score on the other team. Yeah. And I think that's going to be very easy for them to get stops in a playoffs. And that's before you finish out this roster. So it's almost like regular season will have them lower. They will take a bump in the playoffs as they always do. Miami always levels up come playoff time. But I still think that this is a team that I'm not quite sure I believe that they can like get the points needed to beat the best teams as currently constructed.
I'm super excited to see what Eric Spoelstra's offensive system looks like with these guys because he has literally been It's like one of those weird chef shows where they lay out a bunch of weird ingredients and you're supposed to make something like, yeah, exactly. But he's like, if there was a guy that I think could figure it out, it would be a guy like him. I'll be really curious. I think you're going to see an insane like transition based attack. I definitely think they're going to be a big defense to transition team.
Yep, I agree with you.
Number 6 for me is Philly.
Wow, I love how different we are. This is so good.
This is purely a talent. This is purely a talent piece of this. I think the fit is super clunky with Philly, and I think we'll actually talk more about this later when we talk about like players making adjustments. So I won't get into too much detail here with Jaylen Brown. But the truth of the matter is Jaylen Brown is an on-an-island player. His best traits when he was with Boston were on-ball defense, and then on the offensive end, working from the elbows in one-on-ones while everyone else stood around and watched. And he did legitimately get a lot better at that specific skill, scoring there and playmaking out of the middle of the floor. But he does, and I won't get into too much more detail here, like I said, but he doesn't play well in action with other players, meaning like 2-man game, 3-man game. And he's not a good spot-up player. And I think that makes it a tricky fit, especially considering you're going to get a lot of Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid pick and roll, which is going to put him into spot-up situations. I think there's a rhythm element that's going to be clunky. This is just a sheer talent play. Like if it all comes together, they could win the East. But I could also see it going the opposite direction and them going home in the first round.
I had them really low. I'm low on Philly. I might like just take the opposite position because I really don't like the fit. I think of players in the fit as 2 players that are very good players that play off each other well. You give a +1 to them. 2 players that are very good but sort of take away from each other. It's like a -1. There is a world where you can build a Boston-like system where it's just everybody spread out and take your turns driving, and that's how you augment. Even when players don't fit well together, it's like it doesn't matter. We're just playing a bunch of one-on-one ball and passing it if we don't get all the way to the rim. Maybe that's what Nick Nurse puts together there. But the Embiid piece of that, I think, makes it complicated because I don't know if he has a role in that offense outside of being in the corner and spotting up. So I think it is a clunky collection. I don't know if, like, for Jaylen Brown to have a great year, like a career year, Maxey probably has to sacrifice a lot. And if it's not Maxey, VJ has to sacrifice a lot. One of those guys has to have a down year for the other guy, in my opinion, to have a really high year. And then the Embiid piece. So for me, I'm just a little bit lower. And then the biggest thing is to win a championship, you're talking about 4 rounds of health. And I just don't see that from Embiid at all. So really you have to say, okay, you'd get Embiid for a portion of a playoff run and then still win a title. I almost count them out because of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was the best player in the first round series against the Celtics and then immediately broke down again. For the record, I don't think LeBron's going to Philly. But Cowherd said this on our show that we did on Sunday, and I thought it was an interesting point, which I agree with, is like they're a team that could weirdly benefit from him because, like, especially managing that personality dynamic of like Jalen and Tyrese and Joel. I think they could use like a veteran champ that could get in their faces and be like, we got to do this together. Like we can't do this separately. We got this your turn, my turn crap isn't going to work. We got to figure out how to play together. I think Philly could really benefit from that type of veteran presence. I don't think LeBron's going there, but the point is that dynamic is exactly why I'm similarly low on them relative to like the talent. But I do think there's an undeniable amount of talent there.
Let's go kind of quick. So for record, I had them 10th, which is really low. Let's kind of go through these next ones a little quicker.
Okay, so last one in the second tier for me, Denver at 7. It's just continuity play. I actually do think it was smart for them to more or less run it back. They're the big bad wolf for them in Minnesota has been completely removed, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute. And then,
well, hold on, just on Denver real quick. I have them 5th, and I know, look, this is a homer take. You guys can call me a homer. It's a homer take. I don't care. It's July. I'm gonna give the homer take. The argument for them is they won 54 games last year, and Aaron Gordon played 30 of 82. Yeah. Jokic missed more games than he ever has, roughly 20 games, and then was hurt for the back half of the year. He's hurt for 30 games. That team, when they were healthy, was a juggernaut. And you could make the same case I just said with Embiid, which is that what are we really counting on Aaron Gordon to be healthy for 4 rounds? To me, that's the biggest critique. But I still go back to the fact that, yes, Minnesota is a team that was built to beat Denver specifically. And even then, Denver kind of killed them in game 1 before the wheels came off from a physical standpoint. People will talk about their defense. I say Aaron Gordon's their best defense. He was out, or he was trying to play through this hobbled injury, but he's clearly ineffective. Peyton Watson was out. Christian Brown tore ligaments in his foot and just tried to play through it. Spencer Jones was out leading. Their 4 best defenders were all out or hobbled in that playoff series. And so I don't think they're a good defensive team, but I also think we saw them without their defensive players in the playoffs. And so, again, there's a reason they're 5 and not higher for me. I'm not buying them to win a title. The same as I said for the teams that were slightly above this. I'm not buying them to win a title. But I do think that the market has overcorrected on Denver to like they're absolutely cooked. And I'm like, they're just not quite as good as they were. But they're still a 54, 55 win team if they can be healthy, if they have health luck throughout the year.
I totally agree. I think they're Knicks West. I think they're the team that, like, if things break right, they have the continuity and enough talent to get it done. I think either through retaining Peyton Watson or if they could pull off a sign and trade and get an asset back that they could then use to improve the roster elsewhere, they could make a slight pivot. But I like teams too that have championship pedigree, but that have recently been embarrassed the way that they work, because I think it could go a long way towards galvanizing them.
The other thing that's funny about the way people think about Denver, they lost because of their offense. Everyone's like, oh, that defense is so terrible. Minnesota, 105 points, 119, 113, 112, 113, 110. The offensive rating was like 106, 107, something like that. They were lost because their offense got shut down and they didn't have ball handlers, which, by the way, they haven't really addressed. But their defense, not good. It wasn't like, I think there's an overcorrection to some of their defensive stuff, but I get it. The narrative rules, and that's kind of the narrative for them. All right, what's next?
Number 8, I have Detroit. I do like the small moves they've made. I think Isaiah Joe is going to help them quite a bit. John Collins was actually my favorite power forward out of the power forward free agent market. I just think he brings a good combination of like corner shooting, vertical spacing, and rebounding, which I think can lack with some of those other power forwards. So I like the small moves they made, and I like that they didn't jump on Tyler Hero. I want them to wait for someone better. I think that someone better is going to materialize at some point this season, and I think Detroit's going to throw the kitchen sink at them. So I like them here as like a team that has a strong foundation and I think is poised to make that move to put them higher on this list.
I think the thing with them is the Duren piece of this. Like the reports now are he just really wants out of Detroit, and sometimes that's the risk you have with restricted free agents. Is they get to a point where they're so offended that they no longer can even imagine coming back and playing for you. I think it's insane for Duren to be there. Like I think he needs to take a deep breath and say, hey, look, you wanted the max. It's probably not coming for you. What can you do to move forward and have a great career? You're young enough that this isn't your last contract. So assuming that gets smoothed out, I actually kind of like their team, and I'm surprised how many people are lower on their team than I am. And, you mentioned this with Boston. They do have flexibility to make an in-season move, which I think they're another candidate for that. They didn't really do it this year. I think that might teach them the lesson that if they are a top 2-3 seed and things are coming together, but they desperately need this or that, at the deadline, you just got to do it, man. You got to pull the trigger and become that team. So I like Detroit.
They got to do it this year.
I had them 8th as well, just a different order of teams right above them.
Number 9, the Lakers. It's just a Luka thing. I actually don't really like the Lakers offseason very much, and we don't have to get into that now because I'm kind of frustrated. I think all I can think about is the March team that was kicking everybody's butt, but instead of DeAndre Ayton having Walker Kessler, and I just think that team is a legitimate championship contender, and instead they're like, we don't want the LeBron and we don't want the vets. And I still think the entire reason LeBron's not a Laker right now is because the Lakers didn't want him. If you've done any digging around the Lakers, it's abundantly clear they were ready to be out of the LeBron business, which is just crazy to me. But that's a conversation for another day. Regardless of how frustrating their offseason was, just simply put, they have a top 3 or 4 player in the NBA, and they have a good secondary ball handler, a rim protector. I don't love the supporting cast around them, but it's enough to at least put them on this list for me because of Luka.
They're not on my board. I don't love I'm with you on a Luka piece of this. To me, as more regular season, like he's going to carry you to a lot of regular season wins. Mm-hmm. I still think that their team is going to have too many vulnerabilities come playoff time for me to like take them too seriously. And they don't. And unlike the teams we just said, I don't think they have the flexibility to improve themselves, even on the margins. You know, it might even be a thing like there's a good team in here. We just need a little more rebounding. I think even that is going to be hard to address given their roster construction. So that's why they were off the board. And on top of that, like I said, man, Adam Silver wants parity. Cutting this to 10, there's a lot of teams that have a case for being at this back portion of it. I just left them out personally.
10, I went Cleveland, and I do not like this Cleveland team very much, but there's two reasons why I continue to keep them here. One, as much as I'm not a big Donovan Mitchell fan, and I do not agree with the extension they offered him, I think they should have traded him. I think Donovan had a brutally bad playoff run that will lead him to have a bounce back season. And then 2, I still think Evan Mobley is on an upward trajectory and will continue to improve. And they have a strong enough foundation, and there will be a little bit of continuity. So even though I don't necessarily like that Cleveland team, I have them at 10.
This is your Mobley is your Clippers. This is how I was with the Clippers for all the Kawhis. They keep losing, and I'd be like, yeah, but this year's different. And I love Mobley too. I kind of pencil him in to be the guy that he is. They were 11 for me, so they just missed. They're the honorable mention team. I have Raptors 4. And I don't care. I want to be bold on this. What I said in July, I'm going to be bold. I assume they're getting Kawhi Leonard. I think they were a sneaky great team and a great playoff team last year. They just didn't have, Ingram wasn't the guy, and they kind of needed the guy. Kawhi is the guy. And I think stylistically, there's almost no change. You just plug him into what he was doing, and he's just way better player at every aspect of the game. That's a huge upgrade. I think they have a great coach. I think they have a great culture. And so they're a team that I actually think, again, just regular season, I think they're going to get some wins. And then come playoff time, they're going to have the versatility to cause a lot of problems for teams. So I had them 4. I went Nuggets 5. The Timberwolves.
Wait, really quick, I fully agree with you about Toronto. And if I was including Kawhi, they would have been at number 4 for me. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I thought they were a very impressive first-round team.
Underrated,
Kawhi,
honestly,
Kawhi
what they did.
literally addresses all of their weaknesses.
I agree.
The Kawhi, Scotty Barnes, Colin Murray, Boyles front line is going to be hell to deal with in a postseason with their ability to switch actions. I'm 100% with you. I think Toronto is like a legitimate threat to win the title if Kawhi is there.
And I see Bootzilla saying a great playoff team. They lost in the first round. What I mean is great relative to like the talent they had, and that's what I mean is they were better than you would have thought given just the on paper construct, because I think they check a lot of playoff boxes. They weren't very talented, but they needed a Kawhi. They needed the guy, and I think that Kawhi is great when all the other pieces are in place. He comes in and can complete.
Ingram no-showed the series. Ingram literally he played terrible, and then he left the series with an injury, and you're replacing that with Kawhi freaking Leonard. And internal improvement for one of the rising stars in the league, and Scotty, Colin, and Emmanuel quickly was hurt last year. I'm wholeheartedly with you on this one.
I think my team number 6. So then I had Nuggets, and the only team I had different from you in the top 10 was I have the Timberwolves, and I just feel like you're either pro Timberwolves or anti Timberwolves. I don't. I could easily make the case against this as I can for it, because it does have disaster potential. But I do think that the offense is going to be very dynamic. They have a lot of height on the perimeter now, and just athleticism. They're going to play fast. I think they're going to be tough. They did lose a lot of their size, which is going to be interesting to see how that affects them. My hunch is they are a better regular season team, slightly worse playoff team. But you have 82 games to figure out an identity that makes you a better playoff team. So I'm buying them because I think their upside swing is high, even if their floor is low.
I'll save the upside piece for when we talk about LaMelo in the next segment.
Perfect.
But the short version for why I was lower on them is their entire front court rotation now hinges on an older, aging Rudy Gobert. And a big part of what I loved about that team was their front court depth and just how physical they were. And so even though I love a lot of the other bones of this team, and I do think the LaMelo thing will help them on offense, I just think you're a Rudy Gobert injury away from being a playing team.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I do want to talk about those stylistic changes, and there's so many of them. Ja Morant, Giannis, possibly Kawhi, LaMelo, Jaylen Brown.